Good day. Today I'm going to be discussing Chapter 7, Getting Data from RESTful APIs with Hooks, as well as Chapter 8, CRUD with Hooks. And I'm here with my navigator, Courtney.
Hello.
Cool. So cool, let's jump into it. Chapter 7, Getting Data from RESTful APIs with Hooks. So yeah, we're mainly working with APIs and trying to retrieve data from the endpoint. So let's see. So yeah, over here I have an input box where I can search a name, right? So I can search a Star Wars character, and here you see a Star Wars character over there. And as soon as you do that, fetches that data from the API endpoint, as you can see. So let's see how that works. So we have here, of course, our main.jsx, which launches our application. Then in the app, we've placed the Star Wars components, which is what we're gonna return in the front end. Then here is our Star Wars component over here with this div, which returns Star Wars characters, the search term, and the search term function called giving the value when we click, and it shows the characters over there. So yeah, we have a function characters over here. We placed search term here as a prop. Then we have two hooks here, data, which has the data variable. The current state of this is an empty array, but when we have set data here, it will change the state of this of the data in here to whatever we fetch from the API, right? So that set data is, yeah, it's just changing the data within here. Then over here we have loading, so that when we're searching for the user, there's a loading that takes place. So it's set to true, because at first it's false, then when we start typing, it's set to true. Then we have this use effect hook, and within it, set loading is set to true. Then we place our axios.get with the API there, so we can get data from this API endpoint. And then basically in this promise over here, we have the response an arrow function. So this is just to call the set data function, which basically sets the state of this data to whatever results we get in this from this API. Then we have the catch block, which is just for logging errors. And yeah. Then we have this return, which is basically where we use data.length greater than 0 as a condition, and if that is true, then we use the map function to loop through the data, which currently has the data from the API, and we loop through that, and we return each character name with a unique ID using key. Then we have our component Star Wars, and within it we have this hook. Search term has the current state of this data is set to this string, and then when set search term is called, it changes the state of search term to whatever value we get from the API. um, and that is placed over here as the value, and then we see the characters in the front end. So yeah, mainly using this API to get the data from it, and it renders in the front end after that when we search for specific names. So yeah, that is a summary of chapter 7. Cool, so chapter 8, CRUD with hooks. Yeah, we added some CRUD functionality with hooks. So let's see how we did that. Created a to-do list application with CRUD. So here's our to-do list application. Basically, you can just add the title of the to-do, and then click add, and then it's rendered on the to-do list with an edit button over there and delete button. You can delete it as I did now. Then you can, there's also the edit button. Then add as well different rows as well. So yeah, let's see how that works in the code with props and how it works with the hooks. So basically here is our, we launching the app, and basically this is our app component. Firstly, over here we have basically the initial state for the to-do list, which is an array that has to-do items within the 3 dictionaries, as you can see. So it takes an ID with the text, right? It takes an ID here with the text, and the same here as well. So that's the initial state for the to-do list. Then here we just create a context object that allows any component to access the shared state. Then here we have our component. Here we have our app component, and within it we have this hook over here. Basically this hook it has the state variable, and basically what is in the state is basically the initial state, right, which is here. So this is the default initial state that the state variable holds. Then dispatch is a function that basically changes the state of the initial state over here. So it changes the state in here of the data, and how it does that is it sends an instruction to the to-dos reducer in order to perform specific actions, such as adding adding to the to-do list, or removing or deleting from the to-do list. So that's what that does. Basically this use reducer function. Then we have a return with provider. What provider is doing here essentially is it is allowing this prop, which has the state and the dispatch function, it allows that prop to be used by other components essentially. And then within this return we place the to-do list component, which is what we will discuss afterwards. So yeah, that's what that does. Then I have this function over here, to-dos reducer, which is basically reference here. So as I was saying, the dispatch function sends basically an instruction to the to-dos reducer to perform a specific action. The actions that are performed are based on the user's interaction with the SPA. So if a user clicks the add button in order to add a specific row or a specific task to the to-do list, this case is executed and all of this is executed. So as you can see, this is basically adding a new to-do onto the array. So it adds a new to-do onto this array over here. So a new task essentially. Then yeah, that's what that does. Then the delete is to delete from the to-do list. And it uses the filter method to do that by checking if the ID is the same as the ID for the task that we want to remove. And essentially if it is, then it returns a filtered to-do state, which is all the tasks that are not deleted essentially. So when you delete, then it shows all the tasks that are not deleted. Then we have the case for edit. If a user clicks edit, then this is executed. If none of that runs or none of that is true, then we just return the to-do's initial state, which is this over here, the normal initial state for the to-do list. Then we have our to-do list component. So firstly, we have here this line of code. This basically over here, it's accessing the state and dispatch that were provided by the context in app.js. So in a way, it prevents it prevents prop drilling, so that this component has access to the state and to the dispatch function, and it's able to use that because we basically made it available over here. Made it available over here with the provider component. So that's what that does. Then over here, we basically have this hook. It's for the value typed into the form. So when the user types in the to-do, the task, so when we type in the task, right, essentially what happens is at first to-do text is set to an initial state, which is an empty string, right? But when we type into the input box, set to do text function is called, and what that does is it essentially changes the state of the data in to do text. So it will no longer be an empty string, but it will be whatever the user inputs into the form. So that is called over here as soon as we click here, or as soon as we add the values there. That set to do text is called, and it gives a specific value as soon as we're changing the text or the state of the data. Then edit mode works the same. When the default value is set to false, and set edit mode changes that, as well as edit to do changing the value, the state of value in edit to do. Then we have just a condition here as well, where it's checking if the edit mode is true, and if it is, then it will be edited or added. Then we have this handle submit function, which basically says if the edit mode is true, then basically this dispatch function is executed, which basically sends an instruction to the reducer to edit a specific task in the to-do list. Else it will send an instruction to add. If none of that is true, it leaves it as an empty string. Then we have this return with a div, and within it is a form. And in this form, you can see we have the handle submit function as an action being executed, and all of this runs when we edit or add in our front end. Set to do text is called, as I explained, to change the state of value in the to do text variable. Then yeah, we have table headers with to do, edit, and delete. And then in the table body here, we have this dot map, which loops through the to do's, the state of to do, and it gives each task a unique ID, as well as the text based off this on click event lesson over here to edit. And this is for deleting a task from the to-do list. So mainly here was about providing this prop to be available to other components to avoid prop drilling and other components being able to use that. Reducer function, which basically performs a specific action, and that specific action is based off the instruction that dispatch sends to reducer in order to change the state of the data for the to-do list. And yeah, that's basically a summary of chapter 8, CRUD with hooks.